All right, family. We're going to do a part two of Yah's vengeance of the nations. This ain't up your whooping. We really ask that you go ahead and go and look at part one. Look at the first video we did. Also look at Josh's video on the craft Israel, because all this going to run together. But I felt like I wasn't able to get all the PowerPoints and the scriptures out. So I wanted to do a part two, and we're going to run that tonight and let you guys look at it. Again, this is Yah vengeance of the nations. This ain't your whooping. This is something that you should get excited about, not be fearful, not be afraid, because the things that are happening now is things that the Most High is taking vengeance on the nations rather than taking vengeance on his people. All right, so let me skip through these slides and get to the main part that I want to start back at. Okay. Just to give you a recap real quick. We was able to see that Jacob's trouble, we talked about Jacob's trouble and who caused Jacob's trouble. And this is basically a breakdown showing that when Israel broke their covenant and the other nations began to afflict Israel, that was the inception of Jacob's trouble. It's from my understanding that Jacob's trouble is not a future event in our day, but we are already in it. And we have been in it for a while. And the scriptures say that we shall be saved out of it. Because now we live in a time of that Israel is turning back to the Most High. Israel turning his heart back to the Most High. And this is the time that we're coming back into covenant and aligning our life back up with the Most High. So it's important for us to know the time we're living in and what's going on around us. So we was able to see. You have to go back and look at that video, because we was able to see and to show the inception of why Jacob's trouble started and the nations that was conclusive, that had a confederate against Jacob to start their trouble, because their trouble started when they broke the covenant, and it continuously increased all the way up into today, right? And we can look at to let you see um, Moses was also speaking of these things also too. All right, so I tell you, go back and look at that video. Y'all's vengeance is the last teaching that I did and on vengeance of the nation, so it can kind of pull you up into where we talking about now. So this is like a part two. But to understand this, we must understand salvation in the mind of an Israelite. What was our ancestors' idea of salvation? What was their thinking? You can't go based off your definition of today. You have to go back to them and try to understand, what did they hear when they heard repent because the kingdom at hand. What was their understanding? What did it mean to them? How would they perceive being saved? How would they perceive? How would it enter into their mind about salvation to give us an understanding of what we should be preparing for? All right. So salvation in the mind of an Israelite. So we talked about this some in that last video, but now we're going to break it down scripture by scripture. So now let's go to Luke 1, 66 through 77. And it's going to give us an idea. Luke 1, 66 through 77. Line up on line, precept upon precept. And it reads, verse 6 to 8. Blessed be the Most High, our Elohim of Israel. For he has visited and did what? Redeemed his people, and have raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. And he has spoken by the mouth of his holy prophets. That's what you have to pay attention to. You have to pay attention to the mouth of his holy prophets. What did they speak? Now, this is why the Messiah said, I did not come to destroy the law or the prophets, which talks about the prophecies, but I came to fulfill them. Not one jot or one tittle shall and nowhere pass from the law or the prophets until all be fulfilled. So some things that they spoke that we must be in alignment with to understand the time that we living in. All right, which he hath been since the world began. That what? Watch this. That we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all of them that hate us. So salvation to an Israelite, and I'm gonna prove that, is being saved from your enemies. Why would that be salvation to them? Because what? They was always in time periods of captivity. It was so much so that I think it was Jeremiah that said is Israel a homeborn slave? Is he is always full. So salvation to them would be saved from their enemies because we're in the land of our captivity now, which what the Bible speaks of. Because it ain't that hard when you realize that our ancestors was held captive here. This would make this America the land of our captivity because we was in captive in America. But it says we shall be saved from our enemies and the hand of all them that hate us. So Israel was always in the hand of those that hate them, the same way that we are in the hand of those that hate us not. Not saying that all Americans hate us, but you can see that we are in the hand of those that hate us because we have been killed with no regard. And by definition, we have been showed that we are hated by what we see happen to us versus what we see happen to another nation. How we are judged, how we are killed before we are questioned, how the system is set up against us when we are in court. We can be killed, and people can be on paid leave and don't have to worry about anything, and then they try don't even go to criminal court. You see what I'm saying? So, verse 72. To perform the mercies promised to our fathers and to remember the Holy Covenant. So watch this. When you're delivered or saved from something, you're not just being saved from something, but you have been saved to something. So you have been saved from your enemies, but you have been saved to perform the promises of the fathers. So as Israel was delivered from Egypt, they was also delivered to, they was delivered from Egypt, but delivered to the Most High to do what? Perform the mercies of the fathers and to remember his holy covenant. All this is salvation. The oath where he swore to his father. So when salvation is delivered from our enemies and those that hate us, and being able to perform the things that the Most High passed down to us culturally wise, traditionally wise, to perform those things without fear. Verse 74. Everything that was put in the covenant is a part of our salvation. So we was delivered from the hand of the enemies to perform the things that the Most High asked us to perform for us to walk into this covenant. Verse 74. That he will grant unto us to be delivered out of the hand of our enemies to do what? That we may serve him without fear. Right now, we're not serving him without fear because we're in the land that don't consider his laws as high regard. So this is why we just had the Passover, but you can't go everywhere and say that you celebrated the Passover, and people would understand that and want to do it also too. Now you in the land that they esteem Christmas, they esteem Easter, all these other days, and when you say Passover, they look at you crazy. Or you got some people, when you say you follow the feast days, they almost get an attitude with you about following the feast days. So it's just like, we cannot serve the Most High without fear here. Because why? We're still in the land of our captivity. So to recap, salvation is being saved from your enemies and the hand of those that hate you to perform the promises or the mercies of the things that the Most High put in the covenant and to be able to serve him without fear. That's salvation in the mind of an Israelite. Let's keep proving it. Joshua 21:43-45. And the Most High gave unto Israel all the land which he swore to their fathers. They possessed it and dwelled there. So being in our land is a form of salvation. And the Most High gave us rest round about, according to all that he swore unto our fathers. And there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. And the Most High delivered all their enemies into their hand. They fell not out of any good thing which the Most High promised, spoken to the house of Israel. All came to pass. So salvation to us again is entering into rest, being into rest without our enemies harming us, and receiving all the promises that was prophesied that we should walk in. Being the head and not the tail, being above only and not beneath. Blessed when we come in, blessed when we go out. All these things is part of our salvation, our prosperity, our welfare, our being in the right alignment with the Most High, with no fear, without worrying about being hurt, being killed, being led into captivity. We are in the perfect place of shalom with the Most High. All right? Let's look at 1 Kings 8:56. Blessed be Yahuwah that have given rest, again, look at that, rest unto his people, Israel, according to all that he promised. There have not failed one word of all his good promise, which he had promised by the hand of Moshe, his servant. So we see again, it's rest, according to the things that he promised us. Jeremiah 33:21-26. There may also my covenant be broken with David, my servant, that he should not have a son to reign upon his throne, and the Levites as priests, my ministers. As the host of heaven cannot be numbered, neither the sand of the sea measured, so will I multiply the seed of David, my servant, and the Levites that minister unto me. Moreover, the word of Yahuwah came to Jeremiah, saying, Considerest thou not what this people have spoken? Saying, the two families which Yahuwah have chosen, he hath cast them off. Thus they have despised my people, that they should no more be a nation before me. Thus says Yahuwah, if my covenant be not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the ordinances of heaven and earth, then will I cast away the seed of Jacob and David my servant, so they will not take any of his seeds to be rulers over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For I will cause their captivity to return and have mercy on them. So we see here, this is the part of salvation that has been suspended, which is our rulership. Our rulership is also a form of salvation. So being delivered from our enemies, receiving all the promises that the Most High put in his covenant, having rest, and then having rulership is salvation in a mind of the Israelite. I hope we understand that. So now, let's take this type of thinking and let's go to Romans 11 and let's see what it's speaking of. All right? Let's look at this. From that standpoint of salvation, Romans 11, I say then, have they, who is they, Israel, stumbled that they should fall? God forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy. So now we have to look at this and see the context of what salvation is talking about. Can a spiritual born again experience cause somebody else to be provoked to jealousy? Do Israel have a history of being jealous when they in right alignment with the Most High? Gentiles coming in also too, coming into that covenant and being as the native born, having one law. We don't have a history throughout the scriptures of seeing that the Israelites being jealous of Gentiles coming into the covenant. We don't have a history, especially when Israel is aligned right. So this can't be talking about that. So this is talking about something else. That salvation is come to the Gentiles. With that mentality, or what salvation is, because in our salvation we have prosperity, we have rulership, we have blessed when we come in, blessed when we come out. We got all these things when it comes to salvation. So can somebody else have rulership, prosperity, welfare, all these type of things that will provoke us to jealousy? Because we know during David's time, we ruled the earth. We ruled in righteousness. We had other nations pay tribute to us, especially during Solomon time. We had all the gold, all the wealth, all the everything. Mountains of gold and wealth and everything. And to have all that stripped from us, another nation take it, and another nation rule over us, will provoke us to jealousy. Let's prove this. All right, let's look at this. So Strong's G4991 says salvation is preservation, welfare, prosperity, and safety. So with that mindset, let's look at this. Because another nation having our things, because you got to look at every time that a nation came in where we broke the covenant, a nation came in and raided our stuff, and they was able to do that because we broke the covenant. So they was able to come in because the Most High would turn his back and our power would be taken from us, and another nation was able to come in and overcome us. The only way a nation was able to come in and overcome us if we messed up. And it would force the Most High not to move on our behalf and allow the nations to rule over us without a regard for the Most High, because they understood if I can get Israel to break their own covenant, I put them in my hand then, without their protection or their hedge around them of their God. They put in my hand so I can rule over, and I have their riches. So with that mentality, let's look at this. Verse 11 says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation has come to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy. So now let's look at this. Let's go to the Torah and see where he's pulling it from. Deuteronomy 32. They provoke him to jealousy, who? The Most High, with strange gods, with abominations. They provoke them, they provoke him to anger. They sacrifice unto devils, not unto the Most High, to gods whom they knew not, to gods that came up newly, whom your fathers feared not. 18. Of the rock that begot thee, thou art not mindful, and hast forgotten the Most High that formed thee. When the Most High saw it, he abhorred them, because the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face. Remember what I said. When Israel turned their back on the Most High hides his face from us. That means his protection gone, his hedge gone, our strength gone, and we are prey then. We'll prey to every predator. And the nations knew this. So this is why when they found out they couldn't curse Israel, but they would draw Israel away on their own lust to follow other gods that would cause a curse to come upon their lineage, that would make their God take his power from them, and then they would be placed in these nations' hands to be ruled over, and these nations ain't got to have no regard for their God because they understand the consequences of them breaking their own covenant. That's important to understand. It says in verse 20, and he said, I will hide my face from them, and I will see that their end shall be. I will see their end shall be. So the Most High saying, I'm going to hide my face from you, and I'm going to let you what your end shall be. For they are a very forward generation, children who there is no faith. And that's what you receive in the early days. It wasn't just law, but it was faith to follow the Most High. Just now you got to have the faith and also the keeping of the commandments. But they had no faith. 21. They have moved me to jealousy, which is not a God. They have provoked me to anger with vanities. Watch what he said he'll do. This is what Paul pulling this from. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation have come to the Gentiles to do what? Provoke them to jealousy. You have to read whole Romans 11 to see how when Paul is talking, sometimes he'll refer to the going Gentiles just period, and sometimes he's referring to the Gentiles that was able to come in. And then you got Gentiles that had an Israelites that had a Gentile mindset. So you have to read the context to see what it's talking about. But I'm going to prove what I'm saying. So he provoked them to jealousy. How did he do that? By turning his back on them. And by him doing that, these nations can come in and raid, get all the riches, get all the wisdom, get all the understanding, and also take them as Jews. They would take their natural Jews, but they would take them as Jews and make them serve them through the understanding that they have. And now they would have to use their gift for an unrighteous nation in order to survive. That's further provoking them to jealousy. Because what? They know they can't use those gifts back with the Most High no more, because what? Now they are in judgment. So can you imagine being in such a place of nobility that you was the head and then you break the covenant and now you become the tail, and all the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding you have cannot be really used to glorify the Most High anymore. Now you at the bottom of the totem pole and you see people have your riches and walking in your stuff and walking in your stand and walking in your riches, and they're foolish nations. They don't know what to do with this. Even the priestly things, the priestly garment, the things of the tabernacle, they coming and defiling it and using it for what they want to do and putting all kinds of stuff in these temples, provoke you to jealousy. Because a foolish nation took your stuff and doing what they want to. And we go through that even here. Being provoked to jealousy, not having the riches, not having the ability to easily start businesses or easily inherit wealth. We have to work for everything. We have to do extra with everything. We got to go the extra mile, the extra this. And then other nations can just come in and just get whatever. You see what I'm saying? We have been here the longest. If you want to look at a type of immigrant people, um, the Arabs can come over here and get set up gas stations and hotels like it ain't nothing. The Chinese people can come over here with grants and stuff like that and start their own Chinese businesses, and have to, do what they want to do. Mexicans can come over here and they take lower jobs, but they do what they got to do. And then the Europeans, they pretty much own everything else and are still inheriting wealth from what? Our slavery. And what does it do to us? We look around and we got to do extra to get everything, and everybody serving themselves of us. And what is it doing? Provoking us to such a level where we would down each other in order to look better at other nations' sites, especially if it's a position for a job, position in a Fortune 500 company. We'll pin ourselves against each other just to be able to get this position. Because what? We are being provoked to jealousy because it's harder for us. All right, let's keep going. Now, watch this, verse 12. And it show you that every time the Israelites failed, the other nations came in and raided them and took their stuff and evoking them to jealousy, even all the way up until today. Because they owe us so much, even to today, even America. Because the only reason America's superpower is because the money that they made from slavery. That's really our money and our stuff. It's supposed to be. But we sit back and can't get nothing provoked to jealousy. Verse 12. Now, if the fall of them be the richest, the what? Wait a minute. That ain't talking about spiritual riches. But the fall of them, which is the captivity of them, becomes the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them, being diminished, that means taken of them. Taking the things that they have, it diminishes them. Be the richest Gentile, well, how much more would they fullness? How much more when they get all this stuff back? When they are in their civil year of the Most High, and the Most High begin to reset and switching, how much more will they fullness be? That's why I said this ain't your whooping. You ain't got to worry about this because the Most High, it's called the big payback. That's what I should have named this. The big pay. They got to pay back everything they took for our lineage and give more. We're in the beginning of the big payback. It's happening. Babylon raid of 2 Kings 24:12 through 16. Keep in mind the diminishing of them, or through they fall, riches came to the world. Riches came to the world. That letting you see that ain't just talking about a certain type of people. It said riches came to the world that they fall. Watch this. Verse 12. And Joachim, the king of Yehuda, went out to the king of Babylon, and he and his mother and his princes and his office. And the king of Babylon took him in the 80th of his reign. Watch what he did. Verse 13. And he carried out thence all the treasures. Oh, look at that. The fault of them be what? The riches. So when Babylon got them, they took out the treasures of the house of Yahuwah, treasures of the king's house. They cut in pieces all the vessels of gold Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of the Lord. Do you know how much gold Solomon? One day we're gonna do a teaching on what Solomon had. So had other nations that come consistently in tribute, which is give them more gold than he already had. That's why it's talked about the Queen of Sheba. He was just blown away at all the gold that they had. I mean, just blown away of everything. The palace, all that, it was just breathtaking. And she tribute to him. But look what Babylon did. Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of as you had said. And he carried away all of Jerusalem, all the stuff in Jerusalem, and the people. All the mighty men of valor, 10,000 captains, all the craftsmen, the smith, none remained, except the sort of the people of the land. He carried away Joachim to Babylon, the king's mother, the king's wife, his officers, the mighty of the land, those carried away into captivity from Babylon. And all the men of the might, even 7,000, smiths, 1,000, all that was strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon bought. Can you imagine all these people coming and now they got to serve another god and king? All these craftsmen and blacksmiths, now they got to make idol gods, which they was used to making things for the temple. What type of jealousy that they can provoke in them? Wise men, the mighty valor, now you got to fight for Babylon. Let's keep proving. 2 Kings 20 and 17. Behold, the days are coming. It says the fall of them be the riches of the diminishing them, the diminishing of them, the fullness of the Gentiles. I believe it says. Let's go back and make sure I said that. The diminishing of them, the riches of the nations. Behold, coming when all that is in your house and all that your fathers have laid in store to this day will be carried away to Babylon, that nothing is left, said the Most High. This is what Paul pulling this from. 2 Kings 25 and 3. Now the bronze pillars which were in the house of Yahuwah, and the stands and bronze sea which were in the house of Yahweh, the Chaldeans broke in pieces and carried the bronze to Babylon. 2 Chronicles 36 and 7. Nebuchadnezzar also brought some of the house of Yahuwah to Babylon and put them in his temple. So now it's in his temple. As 1 and 7. And also King Cyrus bought the articles of the house of Yahuwah, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem and put in the house of his gods. See how they carrying away their riches? Jeremiah 17 and 3. O mountain of mine and the countryside, I will give over your, look at this, I will give over your wealth. Look at principle. When Israel mess up, the nations know they get their wealth, they get their welfare, they get their understanding, and they can rule with all this stuff without having a high regard for their God. Because these people are in their judgment. I will give over wealth and all your treasures for booty. Booty means almost like raid, where people can. And they take that stuff. It'll be theirs. Your high places for sin throughout your borders. So this is what the Most High said. I will give your wealth and all your treasures for booty and your high places for sin throughout your borders. So we see what they're saying. Look at what that is saying. So have they stumbled that they should fall, but through their fall, salvation or prosperity, welfare, all these great things are, in rulership, because remember salvation was rulership, was rescuing your enemies, was also being able to perform the mercies and the prophecies of the covenant. So this form of salvation, which was rulership and having all the Israelites' riches, came to the nations, and the Most High allowed it to happen. He said, I'm going to put you under foolish nations to provoke you to jealousy. And I hope this is clear. And once he gave us the foolish nations, they took all our stuff, and we're in captivity in those nations, seeing our stuff and not being able to do nothing with it. Because what is the Most High doing? Because we provoked him to jealousy with other gods, he's going to provoke the jealousy with another nation ruling over us. and having our. I hope that's clear. So we see that happen, right? But when the Most High turned, when He reset, He do the big payback. When He turned back to us, now we living in a season of the beginning of the big pay where the Most High is finna start dealing with these nations, because our last captivity has been prophesied, and we done been through that. So now we in a time of seeing the judgment of the nations. Now we still somewhat in Jacob's trouble. But what the scripture says is we're going to be saved out of it, and we're going to be able to see the signs of our redemption being what? Being drawing near towards the end of Jacob's trouble. Because now the nations have to be tried. And the Most High got to take vengeance upon the nations because He have already took vengeance upon us. You can look at part 1 and I break that down clearly. He took vengeance on us because we broke the covenant. This is why Messiah is saying in Luke 21 that these are the days of vengeance upon this people. Who are those people? The Israelites, because of what was written in the oath according to Luke 21. This is why He said when you see the Roman armies come, He said flee to the mountains. Those that are out don't come in. Those that are in, flee out, and all these type of things. Because these are the days of vengeance, that all things that was written may be fulfilled. So the day of vengeance on us is what we get when we broke the covenant. Our tribulation would happen, and the nations would come together, attack us, come against us, and start the inception of Jacob's trouble with the other nations. But go back to part 1 and you'll get a whole full understanding of where I stand with Jacob's trouble. Zechariah 1:13 through 15. Now let's see what the Most High is saying. Because the Most High was dealing with a nation back then that He allowed to overtake us. But watch what He said. And it's the same thing He's saying today. Zechariah 1:13 through 15. And Yahuwah answered the angel who stood by me, speaking words of comfort and assurance. Then the angel said, shout out this message from Yahuwah Almighty. So we ought to shout this out. Do you think I care about what happened to Judah and Jerusalem? I am a jealous as a husband for his captive wife. Woo! Do you see that? It says, shout out. Do you think I care about what happened to Judah and Jerusalem? Of course I care. I'm like a jealous husband for his captive wife. I'm very angry with the heathen nation set around with ease. Look at this, man. He's extremely angry with these heathen nations because they did all this stuff with no regard for Him, attacking His people, hurting His people. Now they're sitting about with ease, thinking ain't nothing gonna happen to them, thinking ain't no judgment day for them, thinking ain't no vengeance. When the Most High say He's the Elohim of vengeance, He said, hey, y'all sitting around with ease. Watch what He say right here. For I was only a little displeased with my people, but the nations afflicted them far beyond my intentions. Ooh. They went far beyond my intentions, so I got to get them. Watch this. Therefore, they went far beyond my intentions. Therefore, Yahuwah declares, watch what He say, because He a Most High, Elohim or Elohim that doesn't lie. Watch what He said. I have returned to Jerusalem. I have to return to Jerusalem, filled with mercy. My temple will be rebuilt, says the Most High. And so will all of Jerusalem, say it again. For the Lord Almighty declares that the city of Israel will again overflow with prosperity, and Yahuwah will again comfort Jerusalem and bless her and live in her. So he's talking to us first. He's going to heal us. He's going to live in us. Everything going to be all right. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. You'll see what I'm talking about. But watch what He got for the other nations, because they didn't went way farther than His intentions. Watch with this. Deuteronomy 32:21. They have moved me to jealousy, which was not a God. They have provoked me to anger, and with vanities I will remove them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Watch this. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and I shall burn to the lowest hell. and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischiefs upon them, and I will spend my arrows upon them. And they shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction. I will send teeth of beasts upon them, and poisonous serpents of the dust. And the sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. This is talking about what all our people went through. And I said I would scatter their corners, and this is the stuff that was going to be happening to us when we get scattered the corners. And I would make the remembrance to cease from among men, where it was not that I feared. Watch this now. Watch this. So I was upset with them. I allowed this to happen. I had already prophesied what would happen. I would scatter the corner, and when they go to those corners, the remembrance of them would cease from men, which is nobody would completely know. If it, and I say this, if it wasn't for the Jewish people taking our identity, nobody really would really know who Israel was without the Spirit of the Most High, and without those West African tribes and their culture and their customs. This is why the remembrance of us was really ceased from them until somebody came to take our identity. Verse 27, were it not that I feared that the wrath of the enemy, lest the lest the adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, it was our own hand is high, and the Most High had nothing to do with it. Now look at this. He said, I would have left this alone, but he said, I didn't want these enemies and adversaries of my people to be told by it's by their own hand that did this. Watch this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither with there any understanding in them. Oh, that they was wise and understood this, that they should consider their latter end. How should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, except a rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up? For their rock is not as our rock, and our enemies themselves being judges. So this letting you see that the Most High said, how could this happen? How could the nation come get these people unless the rock have sold them, unless the Most High had given them up or shut them up? So he's looking at these nations because these nations will start going around talking about if they had ease in their own hand. But let's keep reading. Verse 35. He says, to me, who is me? Yahuwah, belongs vengeance and recompense. Watch this. Their foot shall slide in due time. The nation's foot gonna slide in. Don't worry, Israel. Don't worry, companions of Israel. For their foot shall slide in due time. For the day of their calamity is at hand. Whose calamity? The nations that are at ease. And the things shall come on them shall make haste. So the things that are coming is making haste. For the Most High shall judge his people. For the Most High shall judge his people, and repent himself of his servants. He seeth that their power is gone, and there is none that shut up or left. And he shall say, where are their gods, their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat of the fat of their sacrifices and drink the wine of their drink offers? Let them rise up and help you in your protection. This is why the Most High. This is why stuff is still happening now. And this is why stuff is happening all across the globe with us, because the Most High, especially over here in America, because the Most High have to allow us to disassociate with all these false gods. The God of Kemet, the God of all these other religions, the God of all these other things that we're in. He got to let us see that none of that going to work. How is any of that going to save you? We are the only people that have the answer to why this stuff is happening and what caused it to happen. Verse 39, see now that even I am he. There's no God with me. I kill, I make alive, I wound, I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven, and I say that I live forever. I whet my glittering sword, and my hand take hold on judgment. Watch this. I will render vengeance to my enemies, and I will reward them that hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and they with the blood of the slain and of the captives from the beginning of revengers upon the enemy. Rejoice, O ye heavens, with his people, for he will avenge he will avenge the blood of his servants, and he will render vengeance to his adversaries, and he will be merciful upon his land and to his people. So he said, rejoice in this, his people. I will avenge the blood of my servants. I will render vengeance to my adversaries, and then I will be merciful to my land again and also to my people. This is why we should be excited right now. Because again, this ain't our whipping, but this is about the people that did way more than us that the Most High intended to happen. He's coming with vengeance. He says he's going to wet his sword on and take hold of judgment with vengeance on his enemies, and he will reward them that hated him. Because if you hate his people, you hate him. And your reward is coming. Let's look at Isaiah 63. Gonna get a little gory. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozar? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in greatness of his strength. I may speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thy apparel, and thy garments like them that tread of the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone of the people, there was none with me. I would tread upon them with my anger, and trample on them with my fury, and their blood would be sprinkled upon my garments, and I would stain all my raiment. For what? For what? The day of vengeance, the day of vengeance, the day of vengeance, the day of vengeance is in my heart. And the year of my redeem has come. That's why I'm telling you. When vengeance is coming upon the nations, that means Israel is in their acceptable year, in their time of redemption. So this is why I'm not afraid, because I know what's coming ain't got nothing to do with us this time. This ain't our whooping. We done had our whooping. It's time for the nations to be tried, and time for the vengeance of the Most High and the reward of those that killed his saints. Because he said, while I'm treading upon these people with my anger and killing them, and blood gonna be sprinkled on my garments, what's gonna be in my heart? The day of vengeance and the year of the redeemed. So sometimes the Most High allow these nations to allow their iniquity to get full, to let them go ahead and do is the wickedness. So he got a special type of vengeance and recompense that he gonna have upon this nation, upon that nation. He want them to get to a certain level so he can put his full wrath on them. Let's keep reading. Let's look at this. Revelations 19. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon it was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he do judge and make war. His eyes were as flame of fire, and his head were with many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but himself. And he was clothed in vesture and dipped in blood, and his name was called the Word of the Most High. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, and clothed with fine linen and white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with his he should smite the nations, and he shall rule with a rod of iron, and tread upon the winepress and fierceness of the wrath of our God. He hath invested on his thigh name, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I saw an angel standing in the sun, and carried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of the heaven, come and gather yourself together for supper of the great God. It's going to be a lot of death, and the fowls or the buzzards of the air finna start eating of these flesh. Verse 18, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captives, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great, that came against the Most High and his people. Verse 19, I saw a beast of the king of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat upon the house, on the horse, and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that rose before him, which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and worshipped him, both were cast alive into the lake of the burning fire with brimstone. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, and word proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls of the air ate their flesh. Talk about the vengeance. So when you look at these scriptures, he ain't that for no reason. He ain't just come killing folks by homosexuality and different things like that. He coming killing folks because what was done to his people and what was done to his covenant. He's coming. This is why I'm angry, because they've been doing this throughout all these centuries, and he coming. So let's look at Isaiah 60. We're able to see when he's coming at these people, the next thing is going, the jealousy is going to be left, because we're going to be in our salvation. And just when as they took all this stuff and carried it away from us, they got to bring us back. They got to bring us all our stuff back. All our stuff coming back. It's coming back, y'all. This is what you need excited for. We get all our stuff back. That's why he said, well, let's go back. Where is it? It said, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the dominion of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more they, what's going to happen when they fullness? They got to bring all this stuff back, give us double. Let's look at Isaiah to prove it. Arise and shine, for the light has come, and the glory of Yahweh upon us. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness on the people, but I shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And then they'll come to thy light, and kings to thy brightness of thy rising. Lift thy eyes round about, and see all them that gathered themselves together. They come to thee. Thy son shall come from afar, thy daughter shall be nursed at thy. Then thou shalt see them flow together, and thy heart shall fear, because of the abundance of the sea shall be what? Converted into thee. And the forces of the nations shall come to thee. Watch the nations. They're going to give us multitude of camels shall cover thee. Drummers of Midian and Ephah. All day from Sheba they shall bring watch, gold, incense, and they shall show forth the praises of the Most High. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered to thee. The rams shall minister unto thee, and they shall come up with the acceptance of my altar, glorify the house of my glory. Who are these that fly as those of their windows? Surely the owl shall wait for thee, and the ships of the first to bring thy sons to the far. Watch, but all this coming back. River, there go with them until the name of the Most High and the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. The sons shall build up thy walls. The king shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I ordered thee, but in my favor I have had mercy upon thee. So just as you build walls, now king's going to come build your wall. Therefore thy gates shall be continually open. They shall not be shut at night, and men may bring unto thee the forces, which is the riches. Their kings may be brought. For the nations and kingdoms that serve thee shall perish. Yea, the nations shall be utterly wasted. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee. The fir tree, the box together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my glories. And the sons of them that afflicted thee shall come bending, all they that despise thee shall bow themselves at the soles of thy feet, and they shall cleave the city of the Most High, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Verse 15, where thou shalt been forsaken and hated. Watch our salvation, so that nobody went through thee. I will make thee an eternal exhalation to us. Hatred will leave, and we will be an eternal excellency, joy of many generations. We wish the reputation of being excellent for eternity, and joy that when people hear about us will come to their mind. When nations hear about us, joy will come to their mind. And thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles. They're still talking about their riches. And also breasts of kings. I mean that they shall come. When it talks, shall suck the milk of the nations and the milk of kings. That's what happened when they bathed the breast of his parents, of his mother. That means that's within her. The riches that are her breath, she's feeding and she's taking care. That's how the nation's gonna come take care of us. We ain't gonna have to want for nothing. Thou shalt know that I am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring iron and silver and wood, brass and stones, and I will make this of peace and thy extractors of righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard, and waste nor destruction within our borders. Thou shalt be the walls of salvation and the gates of praise. This is our salvation. This is the form of gospel. Sun shall be no more a light by day, neither the brightness of the moon or the light by thee by night. But the Lord shall be in everlight, and thy God glory. And thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall draw itself, for the Most High will be in everlasting light. And days of mourning shall be ended. People shall be in all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch in the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a strong nation. And I will hasten it in this time. This is when we are by the Most High. He come and take vengeance upon our nations. And the nation of us, how much more with the fullness, showing us our prophesied fullness in Isaiah 70, that all of is coming back to us and more. Let's look at the last slide, which is really the Basora, which is the gospel. that Messiah preached the gospel of the kingdom, by us being in our salvation. Verse 61, the Spirit of the Most High is upon us, the Most High anointed me to preach the good tidings, which is the good tidings which we just read there 60. And then we read in Isaiah 61, the good tidings. He has sent me to bind the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and to open up the prison of the bound. Watch this. Verse 2. To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. This is why he said, repent, because the kingdom is at hand. You are about to be accepted again. And vengeance by God to comfort all that mourn. So this is a message of the gospel, a message of what is this saying? That God, the Most High, is going to take vengeance on the nation and going to again accept his people and return to his people. When we first broke the covenant, he had to reject us. But now he's accepting us and taking his vengeance upon the nations. So this it's comforting me. I hope it's comforting. Verse 3, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes. So every that you had ashes in, you finna have beauty. The all of joy mourning cried about being in captivity, about being raped, about being lynched, burned, about being castrated, about children being sold off, our children being raped, about all these crazy things that happened this century. We're going to have the oil of joy. That the suffering of this present time is not even worthy to be compared to the glory be within us. This is how the scriptures about Paul said, I have not heard either, neither has it entered into the heart of men, the things that have prepared for them that love. So we can't even imagine what this is going to be like. He'll give us the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Now you think all this, during the time of captivities throughout the centuries of our people, we felt like we was ashes, we was mourning, and we had heaviness. We was known by. But it says that we might be called of righteousness, the planting of the Most High, that he may be glorified. So when the Most High plant us, we won't be men. And we shall build up the old ways and raise up former desolations, and we shall repair the waste cities and desolation of many generations. Strangers shall come and feed our flocks, and sons of aliens shall be our plowmen. But you shall be named the priest of the Lord, and men shall call you the ministers of our God. Eat the riches. There they go again, the riches of the nations, and in their glory you shall sell. Watch this. Verse 7, for your shame ye shall have double. And if you really study the history, boy, you'll look at our shame from what we fell from and how we was done. Have double for that. And for the confusion, rejoice in your portion. Therefore, in your land you shall possess the double. Joy shall be unto you. Man, hallelujah. Hallelujah. For I love judgment. Verse 8. And I hate robbery, which they robbed us for burns. And I will direct our work in truth, and you will make an everlasting covenant with us. And our seed shall be known among the nations and among the people, and all that see us will acknowledge us that we are the seed of the Most High. Ain't nobody completely, well, some are, but on a global scale, we're not being completely. No. Verse 10, I will greatly rejoice in you, and my soul shall be Elohim. For he have clothed me with the garment. This whole thing is the garment of salvation. He hath clothed me with the robe of righteousness, all covenant type of talk. Because when a nation give another nation that can covenant to them their garment and give them their robe, it's giving them his authority. And giving them being righteous alignment. So everything that greater nation is that's coming in the covenant with that little nation didn't have that same authority, that same wealth, that same power, that same everything. So when it talks about the garments of salvation, that they would have knew that. And to cover them with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, adorning herself with jewels. All that is covenant. I ain't got time to deal with it, but that's what that is. For earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causes things that are sown in it to spring forth, so Yahuwah our Elohim will cause righteousness to and spring forth before all the nations. So I just wanted to end it here. I wanted to do a boot. I'm gonna try to run this tonight, so you guys can have it. And this is something that we should get excited. This is part of our gospel, but this is the gospel of the kingdom. That's what it is. It's the gospel of the kingdom. You got the gospel of which is Mashiach being our atonement, but then the gospel of the kingdom, which is the message Mashiach preached, is this right here. the full year of the Most High, and the day that He take vengeance against our enemies and put us back in nation and give us double for the shame that we have. I hope this blessed you like it blessed me teaching this. This is something to uplift you that you should rehearse and understand by what the Most High doing. Again, is rebirth of a nation, Brother Tekoa Malachi, Brother Yehoshua, which is Brother Joshua Cullins. I would love you. Our job is to awaken, restore, prepare. Say it with me. Awaken, restore, awaken, restore, prepare. Awaken you to your true identity. Restore you back to your rightful position and purpose in the covenant, and prepare you for prophetic end time events. And this message of